The badge was gray, light, like it didn't want to be touched. Limited access guest printed in thin black letters. A staff member handed it to me outside the reception hall at the Four Winds Country Club in Ohio. It was June 24th, 4:45 p.m. I had just stepped out of my Uber, straightened my blouse and adjusted the pearl earrings I hadn't worn since my husband's funeral. I asked, "Excuse me, is this correct?" The girl didn't meet my eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Please follow the signs for side entrance check-in." Before I could say anything, my daughter-in-law's mother appeared behind me. She leaned in and whispered, almost cheerfully, "It means you're not on the meal list. Don't take it personally." Then she walked off with her corsage, her white clutch, and her front row access. I didn't move. My fingers curled around the badge. I should have asked why. I should have walked away. Instead, I just stood there. Like furniture. Like they knew I would. Sophie, the event planner, who's also my former student, passed by and hesitated. She looked at me at the badge, then quietly said, "Do you want me to double-check the seating?" I shook my head. She nodded. "Okay, let me know." Her tone wasn't fake, but it was careful. Everyone was careful. Around me. And I hate that I made it easy. I hate that I didn't ask questions months ago. When they said, "Don't worry. Mom, everything's handled," I let them handle it. I sent money. I said yes. I even skipped asking for a printed invite because it's family. But here's the thing, if it's family, why does it come with disclaimers? Why was my name not printed in the program? Why was I the only parent without a role? And if I was so included, why the badge? I sat down at table 16 near the storage doors. There was no place card, just napkins and lukewarm water. I smoothed my skirt and looked around. I didn't see my son. They sat me behind a column next to the industrial fan. Every few minutes it kicked on and blew napkins off the table. Table 16. No centerpiece, no program, no name card. The couple beside me, friends of the groom's cousin, whispered, "I thought the groom's mom would be up front." I smiled and said nothing. The servers passed by twice, took orders, skipped me. I waved gently the third time. The young waiter looked confused, then said, "Sorry, ma'am, you're marked as NA." "I'll double-check." He didn't come back. At 5:10 p.m., the speeches started, one by the maid of honor, one by the bride's father, a long emotional thank you from the groom to his amazing new family, to everyone who made this day possible, to our mothers. But only one mother stood up to wave. It wasn't me. I stared at my water glass and realized it was warm. The ice had melted 20 minutes ago. No one refilled it. Around 5:30, my friend Carla texted, "You're not up there?" I replied, "Apparently not." She called me. I stepped out. Her voice was sharp. "Didn't you give them 10 grand?" I said. "Yes," she snapped. "Then why are you near the kitchen?" I laughed, but it wasn't funny. "If it's really family," I said, "then why am I the one quietly funding things while they cut me out of everything that has a mic?" Carla paused. Then, "So stop funding them. Stop being polite about it." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at my badge again, and for a second, I felt foolish. I had read the signs months ago, no updates, no involvement, no questions answered. But I convinced myself it was just a modern wedding, that it wasn't personal. I thought keeping quiet would mean keeping peace, but it just kept me in the back of the room. And the worst part, I was scared to stand up not for me, but for what might happen to my relationship with my grandson if I did. But that night, I started writing it all down. Quietly, not for revenge, just to have it somewhere. Sunday night, June 25th, 8:12 p.m. I was back at the hotel, sitting on the edge of the bed with my shoes still on. I opened my banking app, scrolled, found it. Transfer to Waverly Samuels, $10,000, memo wedding support. Date March 2nd. It hit harder seeing it in writing. 3 months ago, she called me, said the florist raised prices last minute, that the extra touches her mom wanted weren't covered. I asked how much was missing. She said, honestly, between 8K and 10K, but it's okay, we'll figure it out. And like a fool, I said, don't worry, it's your big day. I didn't ask for a breakdown, didn't request receipts. I sent the full 10. Back then, she replied with a flower emoji, and you're a lifesaver. Now I got a badge. I remember telling Carla over coffee the week after I wired the money. She squinted and asked, did she say thank you? In a real sentence, I laughed and said, it's family. Carla said nothing for a moment, then answered, so was my brother-in-law, until I co-signed his truck loan. You know what I learned? Family who won't sign a receipt usually plan to forget. That stung, but I shrugged it off. I didn't want to sound petty, or worse, controlling. God forbid I look like the bitter mother-in-law. But here's the thing, if they needed help, why not be honest about it? Why dress it up like your choice, then act like it never happened? And if it was such a selfless gift, why was I treated like someone who just showed up that night? I sat there staring at the confirmation. I didn't tell anyone, but I printed it, highlighted the date and memo, folded it in half and slid it into my purse, just in case. And I'll admit my stomach twisted, because part of me was scared that keeping that proof made me petty, and part of me was scared I'd need it. The next morning, I called Sophie. What she sent back changed everything. Monday morning, June 26th. 9:04 a.m. I texted Sophie, quick favor. Can you send me the seating chart from Saturday? I didn't say why. Just waited. She replied 5 minutes later. Are you okay? I didn't answer. Just said, if you can send it, I'd appreciate it. At 9:31, the email came through. No subject line, just an attachment named Final Guest List Print DexLSX and a one-line message. Please don't forward this. I opened it. My laptop froze for a second, of course it did. But when the sheet finally loaded, there it was. Row 48, Mendenhall Claris, Table 16, limited badge, no meal. Handwritten note in a different font embedded into the cell mother's request. Seated away from front. I zoomed in. The handwriting looked like something scrawled fast. I recognized it from a birthday card 2 years ago. The same neat slant. Her mother's. I texted Sophie again. Can I ask something? She said, you already know the answer. It sat in my chest like a weight. I had to sit down. I went to the kitchen and leaned against the fridge. I stood there looking at the grocery list I hadn't finished. A pack of blueberries sat out on the counter getting warm. If it was really a mistake, why did someone take time to write it by hand? If we're family, why did someone need to protect the front tables from me? I forwarded the email to myself, then printed it. I wrote the date on the back, folded it, tucked it behind the $10,000 confirmation. My purse was starting to feel like a file cabinet. Later that day, I called my cousin Diana. She works HR at a hotel chain. I told her what I found. She let out a long breath and said, that's not an oversight, Clarice. That's a placement. I didn't cry, but I didn't finish my coffee either. I felt small. I kept thinking about the week before the wedding when Waverly didn't invite me to the final dress fitting. I told myself she was just busy. Saturday, June 24th, 4:42 p.m. The photographer made rounds with a Nikon and a clipboard. My son finally came over, Tuck's slightly wrinkled boutonniere already drooping. Hey, Mom, he said, bending down slightly for a quick picture. His smile was tight. He didn't sit. Be right back. I'll come back, promise. He didn't. A few minutes later, I overheard him near the buffet. Someone must have asked about me because I heard his voice say, she prefers quiet corners. He said it like it was a personality trait, like I had chosen the fan and the folding chair, like I had asked to be boxed out. I stayed seated, napkins still folded on my lap. The salad course came. Skipped me again. I didn't wave this time. I just poured myself a bit more water and kept watching the room. By 6:10, the slideshow played. Childhood photos, vacations, college days. Every picture of him as a kid had me in the background. Every picture, now none. If I was being included, why was I being edited out? Later, I texted Carla. He said I prefer corners. She replied in under a minute. If he really thought that, why did you pay for the centerpieces that landed harder than I expected? I stared at the table. The cheap linens. No flowers. No card. Just me and two guests who kept whispering about flight delays. I felt like a stranger in a room I'd funded. Truth is, I'd started making excuses for him years ago. He's just busy. He's under pressure. Waverly's family is intense. I let it build. One missed Mother's Day. One holiday where I brought dessert but wasn't asked to stay. And yes, part of me stayed quiet because I didn't want to lose access to my grandson. That's the ugliest part. Not the badge, not the seating, the fear. I stood up and walked toward the restroom. Not because I needed to go. I just wanted to see myself in a mirror. The bathroom was quiet, a little too cold from the AC. I sat on the closed toilet seat, locked the stall, and opened Sophie's spreadsheet again. Final guest list print. SLSX. It was the same file I had printed earlier, but now I zoomed in. I needed to see it up close, every row, every scribble. There was a VIP column. The bride's side had 42 names marked. The groom's had 9. I wasn't one of them. There was a meal column, too. Mine was blank. Then buried in the notes column next to my name, 10K written in light gray. Below it, someone had scribbled, "From him," then crossed it out. So they didn't even know who gave it. Or they did and pretended not to. Either way, I felt like I'd just swallowed a penny. I texted Diana, my cousin, sent her a cropped screenshot. She called me instead of replying. Clarice, that looks like they logged the money, but not the person. Like they needed the cash, not the name? Then she paused and said quietly, "You okay?" I said yes, but my voice cracked. That's when the real question came up. If they had enough money, why did they need mine? If they truly saw me as family, why erase the giver? Then erase the mother. I stared at the screen again and caught myself thinking, maybe it wasn't malicious? Maybe it was sloppy. But no, this wasn't a typo. You don't accidentally leave someone off the meal list when they funded half the flowers. And here's the worst part I remembered when Waverly asked for my bank details so she could send me the final program as a surprise. I gave it to her. No questions. I even smiled like an idiot. I should have known. That's what hurts most. I did know. I just didn't want it to be true. I closed the file. My hand was shaking. I didn't want to cry in a public restroom. I stepped out to wash my face and ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. It was 6:52 p.m. when I stepped out of the restroom, still drying my hands with that thin brown paper towel that leaves lint everywhere. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophie. "They think you won't notice." I didn't understand at first. Then she sent a voicemail. I put one AirPod in and hit play. It was a recording. Background noise, chatter, glasses, clinking faint music. Then her voice. The mother of the bride. Clear as day. She's old. She'll sit, smile, and stay out of the way. That's what they do. I stood there frozen. Right in front of the mirror by the exit. I played it again. She's old. She'll stay out of the way. Like I was a plant in the corner. Something to decorate the background, not take up space. I texted Sophie. "When was this?" she said. "During rehearsal dinner. Friday night. I shouldn't have recorded it, but I had a feeling." I didn't answer. I just stared at myself in the mirror. Same navy dress I wore to my retirement party. Makeup still holding. But I looked like someone who said yes too many times. Later that night, when Waverly asked for my blessing for a beach honeymoon and hinted they hadn't booked yet, I said yes again. I remember writing the check for $2,500. No memo line, no questions. I didn't even scan the amount twice. So if I'm so irrelevant, why keep asking me to fund things? And if it's their day, why is my account still part of the planning? I called Carla again, told her what Sophie sent. She went quiet. Then said Clarice, if they're that comfortable saying it, imagine what's never been said out loud. That stung. Because I had imagined. I just didn't let myself believe it, not until now. I packed my purse. Took one last look at the folder where I'd kept the bank confirmation and guest list printout. Then I walked back toward the main hall and didn't take the side door this time. It was exactly 5:36 p.m. when I walked through the white archway and into the reception tent. I didn't stop to greet anyone, didn't nod, didn't smile. Just walked past the champagne trays, past the high-top tables covered in orchids. I could hear the quartet still playing something floaty in the background, but all I saw was the gift table. It was off to the right, near the east entrance. 2 staff hovered nearby, straightening things that didn't need straightening. The tablecloth was ivory silk. The sign said, "Blessings for M&J in gold foil." I didn't waste time reading the cards or admiring the bows. I spotted my envelope red-taped shut, my handwriting on the front, a little smudged at the corner. I opened my purse, slipped it in, didn't rush, didn't sneak, just took back what I had given. A $10,000 check issued June 10th at Chase Bank on 3rd Avenue, and they didn't even save me a seat near the cake. Behind me, someone gasped. I didn't turn. The staff didn't move. Because who takes from the gift table, right? Who dares? Maybe the better question is, if it was really a gift, why does it only count when they get to open it? I remember Carla's voice in my head from last week. Clarice, you sure you're not just paying to be included? I'd laughed it off. But now standing there, I hated how right she was. And I hated myself a little too. Not for what I was doing now, but for how long I let it go. For all the times I convinced myself that staying quiet meant staying part of the family. A woman brushed past behind me. I caught a glimpse of her gown, lavender silk, probably $800. She didn't even look in my direction. Then I heard it, from across the tent. First my daughter-in-law's voice, then his. Hey, come back. I didn't turn. I closed my purse and kept walking toward the edge of the crowd. Footsteps behind me. Fast. Uneven. Then his voice, low but panicked. Mom. Wait. I didn't wait. We were 20 feet from the edge of the gravel lot behind the tent. A white Audi Q5 parked under a string of fairy lights. Mine. I kept walking. He called again, louder this time. People turned. She followed right behind him, voice sharper. It's her choice. She's doing this. I didn't answer. I didn't even look. One foot in front of the other. Dress, dragging slightly over the gravel. Clutch in one hand, keys already in the other. The envelope was back with me, folded at the corner now, but still sealed. My money. My mistake. They made it sound like I was ruining something. But tell me this, if I was family. Why did I need a badge to eat? I reached the car. Unlocked it. Slid in. Closed the door. Locked it again. He reached the window and tapped. Mom, just talk to me. Please. I looked at him through the glass. I saw panic in his eyes, but not about me. About the scene, the optics, the guests behind him whispering. His wife standing a few feet back, arms crossed, waiting for him to fix it. Carla told me once, they only chase when you stop giving. I hadn't believed her then. Now I did. He mouthed, please. I stared at him and thought about every birthday I'd overpaid, for every school form I'd signed, every time I said yes when they asked for a little help with the rent. I wanted to roll down the window, ask him one thing. If I'm so embarrassing, Why do you still want what I have? But I didn't. I just sat. Truth is, I wasn't angry in that moment. I was tired. Tired of being useful but not welcome. Present but not seen. I looked at him one last time, then turned the key in the ignition. The next part I didn't expect. I made coffee at 7:12 a.m. the next morning. Same drip pot I've had since 2003. The smell filled the kitchen. I poured a cup. Let it sit. Never drank it. The check was still in my purse. I pulled it out, unfolded. It looked at the date, again. June 14th. I'd gotten the cashier's check 3 days earlier from the Wells Fargo branch on Queens Boulevard. $10,000. My handwriting on the memo line for M&J. I stared at that line for a while. It didn't feel like my handwriting anymore. I didn't shred it. Didn't frame it either. I just placed it back in the drawer under the stack of LA batteries and expired coupons. Then I opened a blank envelope and wrote, "For when respect returns." It wasn't meant to be poetic. I just needed a place to put the feeling. I didn't go back to the venue. They texted, called, even sent a mutual cousin Rita to ask if I could just show up for a few photos. I asked her one thing. If I was so wanted, why did they hand me a badge that said I wasn't? She didn't answer directly, just shrugged and said, "People panic during weddings. You know how it is." I nodded, but I didn't agree. Because even in panic, people don't invent cruelty from scratch. It's usually already there, just given permission. Later that day, Sophie called. Her voice was low. She said, "They're scrambling, you know. Your absence made more noise than your presence ever did." I laughed once, then stopped. Truth is, I was embarrassed I'd let it get that far. Embarrassed I thought they'd see the effort as love instead of obligation. Embarrassed I thought that check would buy me a seat instead of silence. But no, what it bought me was a mirror. I sat down at the kitchen table, stared at the coffee now cold. I didn't go back. But they'll remember who walked out. And that's when the emails started coming in.